Welcome back, everybody. Hopefully you had a good, nice stretch and got some coffee and a cool break. We're at the last third of Pragma today. We got a few more talks to go, and after that we'll kind of wrap up and get to talk with each other and hang out. So let's get the show started. Next up is our interview with Marcos. Marcos is the co-founder of Gnosis Pay, and you kind of already saw a sneak peek when we were interviewing Lucas on what the Gnosis Pay card is. But we're going to talk about a lot more on what the actual vision here is and the possibilities of Gnosis Pay. So to have this chat with me, I want to bring on Marcos on stage, and please give him a big round of applause.
Hello. Sorry.
There we go.
Hi. Thank you, Garrett. Thank you for having me here.
I'm excited to have you here. I think this is a cool part of this because one of the things that we as ETH Global have been working on is getting people to show what the potential is of using crypto in real life. And there's a lot of years where nothing has happened, and then suddenly everything started happening. And this is a perfect example of one of those cases of us blending in the real world with crypto native world. So the thing I want to start off with is just maybe having you talk about what is Gnosis Pay and how do you yourself define it?
Yeah, thanks. So Gnosis Pay is the first decentralized checkings account available for self-custodian holders, and where you can actually spend your stables in any point of sale that accepts Visa all over the world.
I mean, that's an awesome sentence. So it's a decentralized checkings account, but then it works with Visa, and somehow these two things are talking to each other. So let's dig into that.
Yeah.
What happens when I tap my Visa card at a payment terminal?
Yeah. So first of all, when you actually get your Gnosis card your Gnosis Pay card, it's connected to an IBAN. Where you can basically go from fiat to Euro ETH in Europe or GBP in the UK. And once you make that deposit, you then have your digital assets sitting in your blockchain address. Well, then you go to any regular merchant out there that accepts Visa, sign that blockchain transaction in the point of sale with your PIN code 1234, and then you get an authorization request that hits our processing engine, and then we basically verify in your blockchain address if you hold the amount of stables for that transaction, and if you do, then you are then transferring this digital assets into a pre-settlement account, which is under the custodial of the issuer, which is a regulated institution, and then this issuer is going to keep it until you basically have the clearing from Visa that this transaction went through. So that said, in the eyes of the merchant, in the eyes of Visa, it's pretty much, or even in the eyes of actually the issuer bank, it's fiat, because he's holding for a momentum this digital asset, but once it gets the clearing, then it's off-ramped by the stable into a regular fiat account for settlement in the transaction.
This is absolutely mind-blowing to me. So I have a couple of questions. So is any party here taking a risk on the volatility of any of these assets? Let's start with that question.
Not necessarily, unless we say that stables are not that stable.
So it's only working on stables. So you create a safe, you deposit some stable coins, whether it's Euro or eGBP or USDC in the future, I assume. And then now the bank, which is and I take it that's the same bank that is issuing the IBAN number that is effectively debiting the amount.
It's almost like that, but let's say it like this. The issuer that allows you to have a card,
which in this case is Visa, is that correct or no?
Well, no, there's someone that plays this role today is called Monovate. But effectively what they do is they allow let's say any institution that wants to issue a card, you need to go through someone that is regulated. And why is that? Because you have to basically comply with the country that you want to issue against or the countries that you want to cover. And then this issuer needs to have the license to provide the service. So once you issue that card, or once this party issues the card, effectively you have something called the processor, which is the engine that is actually running the authorization request, response, the clearing, the settlement, all the technology connections with the schemes and any payment player. So the effect, nobody really touches the money. What happens is the user, once he signed that blockchain transaction in the point of sale, he's effectively saying, I recognize this value and I'm okay that this value then goes to this pre-settlement for the period that the transaction is cleared, which means he is effectively sending this digital assets without having to do any double confirmations or any opening apps or anything. So we wanted to create an experience where it's actually possibly adopted by billions of people, which is just a card. It's a card, has a PIN code.
Everybody knows how it works.
Everybody knows how it works. Nobody knows how actually a card works today, right? You don't know how your bank card works today. In fact, there's at least 10 players between you and the merchant helping you to use that card, your regular card. So we're basically taking a role in one of that places, in fact, to ensure that in the future you don't need all those players, but allowing this to happen over time.
That's awesome. So you've been working on this thing for a bit over a year now.
Yep, correct.
How has this kind of journey been so far? Like, I know it's out recently. Are there any stats you can share? How do you measure kind of the excitement so far?
Yeah, so actually we started about a year ago with Gnosis Pay, where basically I met Stefan 2 years ago when I was still managing a very large fintech in Europe called SoulPay. And then we decided to do a joint venture between both companies, and then in June last year, approximately, we kind of spin off. Funny enough, being connected in the crypto community or the blockchain community, the open source and collaboration is amazing, right? I mean, developing any very complex tech, it feels like, yeah, it's cleaning a little desk in a dust environment. The most complex part was, in fact, getting the regulators to agree, getting the banks to give us a bank account, getting our policies to be reviewed without the word crypto, because once they have crypto, then it's blocked. So even though we had the exact language to get things done, yeah, it was very difficult.
So the usual.
Yeah, I mean, it was not usual to me, so I was always very surprised. Like, how can you guys actually say? And then I would always give parallel comments on the traditional industry, and that's how actually we managed a lot of things to go through. Like, well, if you allow this in the regular, why not in blockchain? So effectively, we're only out for a couple of weeks, maybe 4. I think holders are still getting their first cards. We only allow the first 2,000 cards to test if this is really not going to give us anything that we haven't foreseen. So far, we have been transacting in over 40 countries. I was in Denver last week, or the week before, I don't recall anymore.
Me neither.
Yeah, all on chain. Paid literally everything from my Uber, from my in-flight
So you can
Wi-Fi.
see on your safe that these are the amounts that have been. That's awesome.
I had the best FX because we had a very good deal with Visa. So even Revolut does not have the same FX as we hold today. So you're using your Euro card in the US. I tried with American Express, was a disaster. I tried with my Barclays card, which was, I thought it was always good, but it was a bit of a disaster. And then my Monzo, and then Revolut, and then ours, all at the same time, in the same second, trying to make, just to see it, if it actually, we are making a difference. So in fact, it's not only about being the first decentralized checkings account. We have actually a business case that is sustainable. It generates revenue back into a business. It's about having a good offer to the market. It's about any Web3 out there that wants to have a card connected to their wallet, basically enabling the same thing and making revenue on top of it. So yeah, it was, I would say, sorry, you asked about the numbers, I deviated a little bit, but 2,000 cards, we passed 150K volumes. I think all those data are, I mean, it's on chain, right? So yeah. I actually encourage people to go and check it and post it on Twitter, the different angles of the data, because it's quite interesting so far.
That's actually really cool. I mean, 150K in just the last few weeks, that's also like a lot of excitement of people trying to spend money. What was it like working with Visa and just bank issuers? And you obviously talked about that, them kind of backing away when you say crypto and not being super open in those worlds, but you clearly managed to pull through. How did that happen?
So Visa it was extremely interesting because when we did the transaction in Paris, live first production transaction, we didn't know that we actually needed a little approval from Visa on the digital asset, because we felt like, well, we don't touch the digital asset, so we don't need it. But from that moment, they kind of came to us like, well, you need an approval. It's like, you cannot do those things. But the way they flip it around, it was just amazing. Like, actually what you guys did and what you're doing, in fact, can bring cost reduction to the network. So I really want to work with you. They have basically been extremely proactive. They have been rebuilding policies to allow us to operate globally. I mean, all kudos to Visa. And I actually encourage every project here that's interested in the schemes, always knock Visa's door first. And I say that as a happy customer.
Amazing. Well, you kind of start off by saying that what you want to be is a decentralized bank account for everybody. And that's a pretty wide net sort of vision for where you want to be. And the thing I'm kind of curious about is, it seems like everything that you're taking on with Gnosis Pay seems to touch upon the decentralized world, the regulatory side, and then also just the real world in kind of its all its capacity. And just like when we have a notion of borders, is that how you kind of think about the goals of like what you need to blend, or what's kind of the overall way you make decisions?
I mean, Gnosis Pay. Right, so if you look at Gnosis and the history of Gnosis and the amount of great Martin, Stefan, Frederike has brought to the community, I mean, we just heard Lucas just moments ago from Safe, I mean, Zodiac, CowSwap, Chain, just amazing. And the common element in the DNA, it's about long-term, structure, secure. You have this world where they were very good at helping us cracking the bridging side. So the three worlds that you're kind of mentioning. So you have the L1s and L2s, or the decentralized, talking to fiat. And then you have, well, the real world economy. And then you actually have the border, right? I mean, countries, jurisdictions.
You have to follow the rules.
You have to follow the UK rules, because of Brexit, even though they were built on top of SEPA, and there's tons of crazy, right, elements to this. So building those bridges in the technology side, fine. Orchestrating all the businesses that we need to orchestrate in order to make this work, that was a lot more tough. So I guess we should somehow ensure that in order for any wallet or project out there that is interested in connecting to this world, they should be abstracted away from jurisdictions and problems and focus on what they're good at. Money is changing the way banks are offering to consumers, right? So they are basically platforms providing access to those treasury solutions, and we basically are just plugging in that last mile that helps you to behave just like a bank.
Well, that's super interesting. So you've kind of talked about being a decentralized bank. You've kind of talked about just launching the cards with the early first kind of users. If it's not just a card, like what other ways do you kind of feel like you'll be interfacing with as a user?
The way I look at it is what is my relationship with my bank? I basically have my account. I basically want to transfer funds in and out of that account with a card, remittance, which is basically in my country or outside my country. And that's pretty much it. And if I, of course, have savings, then I want to invest. And if I need credit, then I want to borrow. I think Web3 already cracked a bunch of the credits and yield returns and all these elements. The part which is still a bit loose is effectively this off-ramp, where until now you had tons of additional fees because they kind of try to ignore the world as is and they just add a fee element.
And yeah, I guess maybe just to confirm, these fees, from what you're saying, exist because that's how they just want to make money, but there is not really that big of an overhead in actually doing the off-ramp. Is that correct?
I think because they have not entered the Web2 to kind of resolve or to take a role inside of the Web2. They kind of wrap the Web2 and say, how much does it cost? X. So then X plus margin is what I need to charge then to play this game and just leave it. I think it was good until now, but we saw tons of initiatives like Crypto.com and others. But I think it was not really helping to create that banking feeling. And now with this solution, if you choose your tribe, if your tribe is MetaMask, Coinbase, I mean, you name it, if it's centralized, decentralized, it doesn't matter. What matters is that the funds can go from that account all the way to the point of sale in the most effective, in the most simple way, just by tapping or by spending. So I think there's still a little things that we need to bring it out to make it exactly like a bank, but after you go through the KYC, it's, the same.
And you want that exactly. So you're saying
that's what we're going to do it no matter what. That's basically the infrastructure that we're going to invest and spend time and effort every single day of our lives.
Awesome. So I guess maybe in conclusion then, the first 2,000 people got to see their cards or still about to receive them. And we're still only in March. So what does the rest of the year look like? And are there any new interesting either products or improvements or features that we're going to expect? And also just, I guess, where is it available right now? What countries and kind of how do you think about geographic expansions?
So we're now UK, Europe plus Switzerland. And if you were any of those places, you can get a card. I am excited to say that we started an operation in Brazil. We hired, actually, we have a new partner sitting there that is going to involve Americas and Brazil at the same time. I expect more geographies before the end of the year, at least 8, that we're going to be able to issue the card. I expect you guys to have your Apple Pay, Google Pay, because, it shouldn't be about a card physical, but just the card behavior. And I think other things that will enable payments as people are used to. Yesterday, we give an okay for e-commerce, so it doubled the amount of transactions in 24 hours. So I think it's very interesting. Yeah, we need to cover every single use case and make sure that you guys can feel it's nothing different than what is used to.
That's super exciting. I mean, I think this is going to be a good year for Gnosis Pay. And if you're, I guess, interested in basically using your multi-sigs or just your wallets as real-world card debit accounts, we're finally there.
I mean,
took us a few years.
My invitation now, pure public pressure, making sure that USDC gets natively in Gnosis. We're almost there, but I mean, more pressure the better. Today we actually announced that we bridged the Euro C. In 2 weeks' time, we're going to have the bridging of USDC native from Circle, but definitely being natively there, it will be a huge difference.
Congratulations.
And the more stables, please join, and the more wallets, please join. The more we can do together, the better.
Well, hopefully, it comes to the U.S. audience as well, so I can get mine. But this has been super exciting, and congratulations for this amazing accomplishment.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Karit.